Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our program. Tonight, we welcome mystery authors Susan Cory, Jeannette de Beauvoir, and Leslie Wheeler, each of whom represent a different part of the state. They will discuss why they picked these places as the settings for their books and how they use them to create compelling fiction. This program is presented by Sisters in Crime New England. My name is Helen Liu, and I'm the Programming and Partnerships Manager at Carey Library. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank the Carey Library Foundation. Their support enables us to bring programs like today's event to you. This program is being recorded and will be posted to the library's YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please submit them to the Q&A or to chat. I will be sharing links in the chat where you can purchase copies of the author's books. So please look for it there. I'll put it in the beginning and also at the end. I will now pass the mic to Leslie Wheeler to moderate the program. Welcome, Leslie.
Well, thank you, Helen, and thank you for hosting us. Okay, I'm going to start with a few words about Sisters in Crime New England. I'm going to start with not. Sisters in Crime is not an organization representing nuns, female cops, or female criminals, as some people thought. Founded in 1986, it's an international organization that represents and advocates for women crime writers. It currently has 4,500 plus members, and there are a number of local chapters scattered throughout this country. Our New England chapter is one of the largest with 250 members, and we have a very active Speakers Bureau, which I coordinate, and which offers panels like this to libraries and other groups in the 6 New England states. Another arm of Sisters in Crime is the Guppies. This is a virtual group, and Guppies stands for Great Unpublished Authors. Although many people, including myself, who are published authors, also do belong to the Guppies. I should also mention that Sisters in Crime New England, well, Sisters in Crime in general is not limited to authors, published or unpublished. We welcome librarians and mystery fans to our organization. So I'm going to now introduce myself. I'm Leslie Wheeler, and I am somebody who always wanted to be a writer, except for a very brief period when I thought I wanted to be a ballerina. But even at that early age, I realized that I was probably going to be more successful as a writer than as a dancer. I got my start writing nonfiction. I wrote a campaign biography of former President Jimmy Carter called Jimmy Who, which he was in that campaign, and another book which was commissioned by a publisher. Another book that I did, which was really a labor of love for me, was a book called Loving Warriors, which is a biography and letters of Lucy Stone, American feminist and abolitionist, and her husband, Henry Brown Blackwell. And that book won an award. Despite all that, I always wanted to write fiction. And I think it's probably because I love making things up. I found my niche as a fiction writer with mysteries because of the discipline that is imposed on you. You have to have a distinct beginning, middle, and an end. You have to plant clues and build to a climax. And that has always worked for me. I'm the author of, I have two series, the Miranda Lewis Living History Mysteries and the Berkshire Hilltown Mysteries. And that's the series that I'm going to be focusing on in this talk. I'm now going to hand the mic to Susan Cory so she can introduce herself.
Thank you, Leslie. I live in Cambridge, like the sleuth in my 5 books. And after 40 years, I've just retired as an architect. But my sleuth is only 45, so she is still very much working. And we learn about a project she's working on in each book. We both have brown belts in karate. We both have dogs, and we both work out of turreted offices in our Victorian houses. Although in my 6th book, Iris Reid needs to move to a larger space for her added employees. I live with my architect husband, and my sleuth lives with her hot younger boyfriend, who is the chef and owner of a popular Cambridge restaurant. And I tell my husband that the hot boyfriend is based on him. And I'll turn the mic over to Jeannette.
I love that, Susan. Thank you. Yeah, I'll keep this short because I think we'd rather talk about mysteries than about ourselves. But I am caught by the fact that I was talking with someone today and they said, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "Well, actually, I kill people for fun and profit," both of which are true. I started writing mysteries after a long time writing historical fiction when I realized that I was much more interested in mysteries than I was in fiction in history, although all of my letters after my name tend to be history related. But I also like to really bring a lot of different layers into the mysteries that I write so that there is history, so that there is a sense of place, which is one of the major things we're going to be talking about here tonight. And so that there is really a sense of this being a real place and real people, and a place that didn't just sort of arrive like Oz, but is a place that has grown up and that all sorts of secrets and mysteries can be held in there. So that's who I am.
Okay, well, thank you, Jeannette. And the first question goes to you. Why did you choose your particular setting? Was there anything about it that you thought would make it a good place for a mystery?
So yes, absolutely, I do. I probably would have chosen some other setting. I'm obviously familiar with Provincetown because I live here. But one of the other richnesses, so to speak, of being here is that this is very much a tourist town. This is a vacation destination. And what that means is we have all sorts of different people washing in and out of it most of the year, but particularly in the summer season. And if you're as old as I am and used to watch Murder, She Wrote, you know the problems that are inherent in having murders take place in a small town, because eventually you're either going to kill off everybody there or you're going to kill everybody who comes there. And you start having sort of a smaller cast of characters to work with. So I thought this made some sense to have this place where all sorts of different people come, and especially that different people come for different reasons. Yeah. We have a lot of festivals. We have a lot of theme weeks that have to do with all sorts of different interests or backgrounds or even sexualities. And so what that gives me as a mystery writer is this whole tableau to pull not just victims and murderers from, but also these subtexts and also these histories of all these people who are coming here. So Provincetown seemed like the perfect place, and it's working so far. My 9th book is coming out this month. So
great, good news. Okay, Susan.
Well, we were joking before that we write about where we live because we're lazy, but of course
yeah,
that's
right. That's part of it. Yeah.
We happen to live in places that have a rich tapestry. And Cambridge is a college town. It's a very intense college town with between Harvard and MIT. And I first got the thought of writing a mystery when I was back at my 20th reunion at Harvard Architecture School. And all of the backstabbing prima donnas in my class came back, and they were just as intense as they had been 20 years before. They hadn't mellowed at all. And I thought this would be a perfect setting for someone to get murdered.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to me, or back to me, like Susan and Jeannette, my Berkshire town, which is New Marlboro, and it's in South County, is a place where I have a house. It's an area that I know quite well and that I love, but like all other places, it's a place where bad things can happen. For me, it was, I grew up in Southern California in a city, and lived in New York City for a while. And moving to New Marlboro was my first experience in a small town, and I found it fascinating to realize that suddenly I was in a place where everyone knows everyone else's business, or thinks they do, which is perfect for crimes, and also a place where some of the families have lived there since the town. They're the descendants of some of the people who were the original founders of the town still live in this town. The families go back to the 1700s, and I feel that when a crime happens in a small town, it stands out more because you don't have the array of crimes that are happening in a city, and the impacts on the people who live there is stronger, I think, than city crimes, where you can just get kind of, there is the problem of having a lot of crimes happen in a small town. Anyway, I just think that in a small town, also, as I've said, that when you have people that can trace their ancestors back to the 1700s, there's also room for lots of feuds, family feuds, that can be passed on from generation to generation, which can include crimes. So for the next question, I am handing the mic to Susan, and the question is, the Martin Amis, who was a well-known author who died recently, said, "I think all writers are Martians. They come and say, you haven't seen this place right." So my question is, Susan, are there aspects of your setting that you wanted to show in your books that you felt people maybe didn't see? Are there any misconceptions about your place that you wanted to correct?
I don't know if it's really a misconception, but I don't know. I think Cambridge is one of the most European cities in the US, and there's a real cafe culture. There are a lot of bookstores and historic architecture with town squares, and it's very cosmopolitan with visiting professors, and there's a biotech axis, and people are from all over the world. Sometimes when I'm walking my dog around Fresh Pond, I'll count the different languages I hear, and people are discussing Kierkegaard and astrophysics. It's very exotic.
Yeah.
So that's something I try to bring out in my books.
So Jeannette, I'm passing on that same question on to you.
So I'm not sure I really agree with the quote because I'm not sure you can sort of get that kind of broad idea of a place through just one book, which is why we write series maybe. But I think that in terms of misconceptions, Provincetown is just so many different things to so many different people. And one of the things that I've tried to do is get away from this sense that we have in this country and probably in the world right now of othering people that we don't understand. And there are a lot of people who come to Provincetown who live very different lives from what I live and from what many of my readers live. And to be able to just give them a glimpse of that, not as, you know, this group of people or that group of people, but rather as personalities, specific people within that demographic, hopefully is going to sort of open people's minds and hearts to different sorts of individuals that they might not encounter in their daily lives. I'll just give a brief example. The first book in this series was called Death of a Bear. And in gay parlance, a bear is a fairly hefty man, gay man, who is attracted to other hefty gay men. But I was at a book conference and a woman picked up the book and saw Death of a Bear. And she said, "Oh, I don't believe in cruelty to animals." And so that was that. But, you know, to sort of open a door, maybe not on a whole place, but on some of the people who live and work and breathe and are there, I think is really, really important. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay, for me, I confess I wrote the first book in the series, Rattlesnake Hill, because I was tired of, at this point in my life, I was I was no longer a full-time resident in the Berkshires. I was traveling back and forth between Cambridge and the Berkshires. And weekends came around, and the people in Boston, and my friends in the Boston area would say, "So, are you going to Lenox this weekend?" And that infuriated me because there's so much more to the Berkshires. Lenox is not the whole Berkshires, and which is what tourists see. They think it's you know, a place where the Berkshires is not all fancy restaurants and shops, cultural amenities like Tanglewood, which bring a lot of people in the summer, theater and dance, and then the other important time for tourists is to see foliage. But there's so much more to that, and I wanted to show the back, what I call the other Berkshires in my books, or the back roads Berkshires, and where and with a focus on the lives of ordinary people, and these people who often they're not wealthy. They often lead hard scrabble lives, and in order to make ends meet, they have to take on several jobs. I guess I like to think I'm sort of following in the footsteps of Edith Wharton, who, although she, you know, came from a very wealthy background, she didn't write in her Berkshire novels. She wrote about ordinary people and the troubles they faced, and her two Berkshire novels are Ethan Frome and Summer. So I'm going to start with myself. What are the advantages and disadvantages of using real places in our books, as the three of us do? Using my real life town gives me a lot to work with in writing mysteries. I don't use the town's real name, but it's very close. New Marlborough is New Nottingham in my books. And I do mention other nearby towns like Sheffield and Great Barrington, so readers can locate where my real life town is. And I'm fortunate in that my town does give me so much to work with, because it's the township itself is actually divided into 5 villages, and each one of those villages has a somewhat different landscape and somewhat different character, I would say. um, and and I so and my characters are uh, based in part on people in town. I use stories about things that have happened in my town, both in the distant past and the more recent past. Um, so this is my town provides a lot of grist for my fictional mill. Um, for me, the disadvantage of using real life events, as I did with a love triangle that went bad in my real life town, and I heard the story about it. I was kind of haunted by it because I knew the people involved, some of the people involved. So I was afraid I would offend people if they realized what I was referring to. So I decided I would disguise it. I changed a lot of details about the event, this love triangle, and also set it 100 years in the past. I thought I was home free by doing that. Well, guess what? No. I got a message from a woman whose family had lived in the area since the 1700s, who said, I know everyone and every place in your book. Fortunately, she and her family liked the book. And she also said, of course, and including the scandal that rocked our small town. So much for disguise. Okay, so Susan, you also use real places. And
Well, one of the advantages of using real places is you can imagine it so easily and describe it so vividly.
yeah,
You know, sometimes I just put myself in Iris's shoes and imagine what would I be doing next if this happened to me.
yeah, yeah.
And you know, I mentioned restaurants where I waitress during architecture school, and cafes where I meet friends, and the Charles River where I windsurf, and my karate dojo, which overlooked the old elevated subway. The disadvantage, as we've mentioned, is you get into the murder she wrote syndrome, where the bodies pile up and it gets a little incredible that this amateur sleuth is happening upon so many dire situations. So I'm thinking of sending Iris on vacation somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that I'm certainly have seen other writers do that. You know,
Yeah.
give
Well,
a,
they certainly did it to Angela Lansbury. She was always trotting off somewhere
Right.
to find
Right.
another body.
give your town a break.
Right.
Yeah. So Jeannette, do you have anything you want to add to that, or?
No, I am very clear about where it's set. I mention a lot of real people, all of whose permission I've sought before I've put them into my books.
Yeah.
But one of the things I find amazing, and this echoes what Susan was talking about, was if I put a restaurant or a cafe or a show or a theater in a book, and I will have someone later write to me and say, I visited Provincetown for the first time and I ate breakfast at the same place that Sydney ate breakfast. And they liked that, you know, that there was this sense of communality with the characters in the book. And I think that's one of the things that's inspired me to write about specific real places. I mean, two of my favorite authors are Tony Hillerman and Donna Leon. And Tony Hillerman enters you completely into the life of the Navajo Nation, and Donna Leon completely brings you into Venice and the life of the people there. And I liked that so much because it felt like I wasn't just reading a story, I was also learning a culture, and I love that aspect of mystery writing.
Yeah, you were really living the place and the story. Yeah. Well, I did that actually in the first book in my other series, Murder at Plymouth Plantation. I used real restaurants, actually in the other books too, now that I think about it. I felt free to use restaurants, and I was so pleased when I was giving a talk before a group, and a woman said that she had planned a tour of, she went to AAA and had them plan a tour of the Plymouth and the surrounding areas where she would be visiting places that were mentioned in my book, restaurants, hotels, and that kind of thing. So yeah, and I guess I don't do it so much in well, the one place I definitely mention is Guido's. It's such an institution, it's a market in the Berkshires that I felt like I just have to use the real name for this place. Jeannette, again, what kind of research do you do to make your settings come to life? I think you probably answered some of this, but
Well, and I'll answer that in part by adding that we do have a question from the audience where someone has asked, how do you plan your research for each new novel or storyline? So I think that kind of flows into what you're asking. In terms of looking at, I mean, a lot of what I write, and I think I having had a conversation with both Susan and Leslie before this, I think this is something we have in common, that a lot of what we do really does spring from the place. A lot of what my research involves is just sort of boring down into a place. I can't say this about this series, this Massachusetts series. I know we're talking about Massachusetts tonight, but in another series, I did a huge amount of research before I went to stay there, and found things online that probably wouldn't have occurred to me walking down the street. And I find that walking down the street here in Provincetown is also, it's just like you've got these layers and layers and layers. I mean, I know I keep coming back to that, but it's true that one person walking down the street is going to see totally different things from another person walking down the same street because of their interests, their backgrounds, their all sorts of different givens. And so I think that when we start doing research, what we have to do is stop and say, what is the core story here? For me, the core story is really not generally the murder. It's, what is this community like? What would happen if something happened here to disrupt this community? How is this community going to respond? And then I go to internet research, and then I go to talking to people, then I go to the museums, then I go to the art galleries and speak to people. But it really does pull itself out of, so to speak, the soil here. So I'm not sure that's a complete answer, but that's a place for us to start.
Well, I agree with Jeannette that the whole plot rises up out of the setting, I think, in the characters, and it's visceral, it's basic. And I'm amazed at how much research I end up doing, since this is my home, this is a place I know so well. But the details have to be right. You have to get, mystery readers are very bright and they don't miss a trick. And if you screw up on
they tell you.
Yeah, police,
they will tell you.
or I find myself going to restaurants and checking out the back entrance to see if Iris could really crawl through that window to escape something, or how far distances are apart from each other. And so let's see, I sort of lost my train of thought. Where the closest FBI headquarters is. I toured the police office, the headquarters in Cambridge, and got a detective to show me around, and met with the fire chief of Medford to talk about arson. So you really have to get the details right. That's the kind of research that I do.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of kind of, I guess I would describe it as physical research, walking around, and I go on a lot of hikes with, my town has a very active land trust, and I've gone on hikes with them and learned about places that otherwise I might not have discovered on my own, and those places have become the major setting for my books. Rattlesnake Hill. There is no Rattlesnake Hill in my town, but there is another hill, Dry Hill, where in olden times people would go to and kill rattlesnakes and bring the tails back to give to the town clerk for money. And it's kind of details like that that I get in histories, local histories, and it's just, yeah, exploring these landscapes for me is really important, and it gives me the story. And even as you're talking about walking around pretending you are that character, well, I for the this is also in Rattlesnake Hill. I have two important scenes, including the climax, that are set in this fascinating area with ruins of an old mill that used to be there, and it's a lot of quite a sizable all stone structures, and I went down there with a friend, and I said, okay, now I need to have a murder happen here. How can we do it? And he threw out all my suggestions, and I had to figure how I was going to do that. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out using the landscape and other things, and yeah, getting town history is really important to me too. Because
I do think that this is one of the places when we speak of research that what we three are doing is a little bit different from what someone who's making up a place and people and just everything coming out of their head, in the sense that we do, as Susan said, have this obligation to the truth. If I'm making up a story that takes place in a make-believe town, in a make-believe country with make-believe people, I can create this world however I want.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it is different from saying, okay, I want to stay faithful to this place, to the people who are here, and to the ethos of this land. So I do think that that's kind of relevant to the kinds of things we're discussing here.
Yeah, and I think in some ways it makes it easier, but in some ways there are real challenges, because it is important to get it right.
And another aspect of that is you're trying to get it right, but you're not making it a travelogue, because you're through the
Yeah,
lens
right. I
of
know.
a very specific person. And the main character I have is an architect. So everything she's seeing is through the lens of an architect.
Yeah.
How she perceives her world.
Right. I like food a whole lot. And at one point, my editor said to me, this isn't a tour of fine dining establishments. You know that, right? Like, okay.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I've got a lot of food in mind too.
It's easy to go.
Tell us what your main character's occupation is. I think that's important.
Oh, Susan, you're an architect, right?
Right.
No, Jeannette.
Oh, my main character, my protagonist, is a wedding planner, and I gave her that profession just because it gave her some flexibility. First of all, she's meeting a whole lot of different people who are coming in to plan weddings and get married. It gives her flexibility in time, that she's not sitting at a desk from 9 to 5, so she's free to go off and solve these crimes. And it's kind of in terms of societal place, she's kind of not anywhere. So she's got a lot more freedom. That was really important to me when I was trying to think of, how this person would fit into this community. And it also means that she has the opportunity to sort of think about the kinds of things that many of us here think about, which is, what does it mean that we've got these influx of people all the time? What's that doing to our infrastructure? What's that doing to the nature? All these questions that we think about. I'm not sure she'd think about if she sat in an office, but I know she thinks about it because these people are coming in and saying things like, can we release birds? Can we release doves? Well, no, you can't release doves. Let's think about why. But all of these things make it, I think, a little bit more thoughtful, possibly a little bit more philosophical than it would be if she had a job that, was really just a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, well, my character actually I would describe as what I have become, kind of a, well, I started out when I first moved to the town as an outsider, and it took me a long time to gain acceptance. I think it was 2 years before I was Mrs. So-and-so for the first 2 years with the local butcher and, at the general store. And then it was like suddenly after 2 years, I was Leslie. And, we were on a first name basis. And I was very aware how long it took to get to that point. And so my character really has obstacles, and she has to find people who can give her the information she needs. But as she gets more involved in the town, she becomes more of an insider. So she has this sort of dual perspective. She's enough of an outsider to question. She does not accept everything at face value. Oh, this is the way things should be done. She questions, but as she becomes more of an insider, her perspective is changing. So, and she is actually, I have her be a curator of prints and photographs. Family photographs have always been important to me in my life, and in at least one, well, in Wolfbog, she uses her knowledge of photographs to help solve the murder. And she gets a trove of old family photographs. Let's see here.
So we have some more questions coming in, if that's okay with the two of you.
Sure, that sounds good.
We've got, here's an I don't know if it's easy or not, but do you have to get permission to use the actual names of real places like restaurants or hotels or schools?
Well, it depends.
Would you like to grab that?
If you kill somebody at those places, then they're going to be really mad and you have to change the name. But otherwise, they're thrilled usually to be included.
I don't have that problem with my current series, but I did have it with the Living History Mysteries. The folks at the Living History Museum in Plymouth were not thrilled about the fact that I set a mystery at their place, and we had some back and forth. They did not. They did want me to credit that the name. I was using their name because I used the old spelling, Plimoth, and without the U. And with Gettysburg, they're not gonna. I didn't really need to get permission, so I didn't. Where I really ran into it was the third book, Murder at well, it was going to be called Murder at Mystic Seaport. Well, the Seaport was not at all happy about that. I said, is it okay? And they said no. And so I had to change the name. I was using another real place, and that was the Foxwoods casino. I had a dual cast of Native people and whites, and I was actually dealing with tribal lawyers, and I finally decided I might as well change the name of the casino, and that meant also making up a tribe, a fictional tribe, because the lawyer said, well, we don't know when we'll get an answer to this.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think in general, if you're sensitive to what the organization is and how they promote themselves and what they're doing, it makes a difference if it's, a restaurant that everybody knows rather than it's a place that only a few people know, or that is as you say, a tribal venue, or has other issues. But my experience has been like Susan's, that most restaurants and organizations have been
Yeah.
absolutely delighted to be mentioned by name.
Yeah.
And they've gotten people in there for that. So we already really have touched on how do you make sure your novels do not sound too much like travelogues. Is there anything that either of you would like to add to that question other than what we've already said?
Well, yeah, just be sure. And I think for me, the issue is getting enough internal monologue and really getting in the character's head and how she is perceiving things, or he perceiving things, that keeps it from being just a travelogue.
Yeah, I'll answer that for myself, in that I think that we all talk about the place, the venue, as being a character in the book and the
Yes.
story.
Yeah.
And I think that if you keep a balance, that you're not going to fall into that travelogue kind of pit, so that it's no more important or no less important than a description of a person, or than a description of a thing or an idea, so that there's a balance. And obviously that your story, your plot comes through all of that. But I think that as long as you keep it balanced, you're not going to fall into the travelogue trap, so to
Yeah.
speak. Susan, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, or?
Well, there are a lot of people who went to school in Boston and Cambridge, or they visited and they think they know it. And, it's not like I talk about the Freedom Trail or anything that's too typical, but,
Right.
I'm just showing my little slice of it and how I view it. So
Right.
I don't think it's a travelogue, but you have to read it and find out.
Okay. So we have a question. Can you talk about advantages and challenges of having an amateur sleuth? How does
Oh.
that drive your writing and the story? We could do a whole evening
yeah,
on this one, but
Yeah.
let's keep it short. For me, it's laziness, because I don't want to have to learn police procedurals. So that was pretty. No, that's facetious. But I think that having an amateur sleuth opens a lot of doors, because they can do things that the professionals can't do. They can sort of, march in where angels fear to tread, so to speak, and have a lot more latitude in the people they know, the people they hang out with, the situations that they explore. So that's all it is for me. How about the two of you?
Yeah, I would say it's similar for me. And also I think the fact that I'm setting my books in a small town, there isn't it's not like a big city police force. I mean, we have a chief, the guy who mows my lawn, and in my town, this is something I found out recently. We don't have a jail, and they pay a certain sum to Great Barrington if they want to jail somebody before sending them up to Pittsfield. So I have a police, but a policeman, chief of police, but I feel like my characters can, you know, go places just by being nosy and connecting with the right people and connecting with them on a personal level rather than police, I'm not going to talk to them. But I mean, there still are real challenges with getting information. It's like, you know, and then how do you justify having an amateur sleuth solve a crime when they don't really have some of the resources that a big police station does,
Right.
or even a small police station.
I've always found that the mysteries that I enjoyed reading the most were amateur sleuth mystery. And that's why I wanted to do that. And I also felt that my profession was underserved. Architects are integrated into all these different people's lives. We have to know about our clients. We have to know how they live. And so it's sort of a perfect profession for getting behind the scenes. And I had never read any architects as sleuths before. And a lot of people are curious about what we do.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be a good entree.
I love how personal that is, because you're literally in their homes or their workplaces.
Yeah, you find out a lot about people.
I'm sure.
But the difficulty is they're getting into danger, and there are situations where, of course, they would call in law enforcement instead of just running into a situation where their life was in danger. And I did make Iris have karate skills, and she does manage to solve some of these crimes through her architectural knowledge, which has been a kind of a trick for me to figure out how she can discover places where things are hidden.
That no one else would have seen. Yeah, I like that.
Just kind of cool.
I like that. I have kind of solved it by having my protagonist's boyfriend is in law enforcement. So she's got this backup, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I confess I have sort of a backup in my book, in that my main character is involved in a romantic relationship with a man who's, well, you know, a small town. So one of his cousins happens to be the chief of police. So he is able to get information from his cousin. And also in a small town, there's a lot of gossip. It's amazing how much, you know, what's in stuff that's supposed to be private gets talked about. But I also I think one challenge I've had is dealing. There's this. I don't want my main character to be too stupid to live by putting herself in situations that no sane person would do. And so you have to kind of balance that and find a legitimate reason for her to, let's say, go to this place, which could be dangerous.
Right.
And that can be hard sometimes, I find.
No,
So sorry, Susan, didn't mean to talk over you.
No, that's okay.
Oh, we have another question. This is interesting. How do each of you settle on a character's name? Does it arrive out of the plotting process, or do you have a list of names that you check off as you go along with your writing? I love that question. Who wants to grab it first?
I've got a list.
Oh, go ahead, Susan.
Susan has a list. I love it.
I have a list when I am just reading something, reading the newspaper or reading an alumni newsletter, and I come across a really funny name. I'll write it down on my list. And sometimes I'll juggle them around and change the last name and the first name. But I also have a list of names that I've used before, so that I don't have too many that start with D. In fact, my writing group caught me on something and I had to change somebody's name in midstream. But you don't want to create confusion for the reader.
Yeah.
Right.
Names are really important to me. And if I cannot get the right name for a character, they're not going to come alive for me. So I have to, in my head, I have to find just the perfect name for a character. And I struggled with the last name of the villain in Shuntoll Road, and I must have tried out 1,000 names, and I kept changing it as I was writing the book. And my critique would, no, we don't like that one, and we don't like that one. And finally, we had this session devoted to, okay, so what's a good name? And they rattled off a couple, and from that I found them. But yeah, I like you, Susan, I'm aware of, I make note. I'm not so organized that I keep a list, but if I come across an unusual name, I think, oh, that might be something to use at some point.
Yeah.
I always had the main characters, the protagonist, the people who are going to be recurring throughout a series. Mostly I think about, can I live with this name? Because I've in the past done stories where I just ended up hating the character because I ended up feeling like, oh my God, if I hear that name one more time, I'm going to scream.
Oh.
So I try to find something that I know, for example, that, okay, this person's going to be living in my head for a long time.
Yeah.
What can I live with? And then what's interesting, I also have a personal tendency to go for unusual names. My stepdaughter's name is Anastasia. I mean, I like names that are different. And I realized that that's not real life necessarily. So to try to sort of balance, the Toms and the James,
Yeah.
the Anastasias and the Sydneys and that sort of thing, I think is important because we have a little of each in the world. But I do find that once I've named a character, a lot of things kind of fall into place for me with them, that maybe they wouldn't be that way if they had a different name. And I think that's where part of the magic comes in, because there's no real reason for that to happen, but it does happen. And so I think that that's one of the places where we just have this magic sauce, this secret sauce that makes it all work. And that's something that you just have to wait and have come to you.
Yeah.
I think that's all we had for questions on the question and answer and in the chat. Was there anything that we haven't covered that the two of you feel like in our last few minutes here we should talk about?
Well, I want to
How
talk about,
about, go ahead, Susan.
oh, sorry, what we're currently working on.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Obviously, we're on the same wavelength.
Great minds. Susan, why don't you start then?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm finishing up my 6th book, and Iris finds the bones of a homeless person buried between the floor joists of a museum she's designing in Harvard Square for an Elon Musk type character.
Oh, nice.
That will
love it.
probably be out this summer.
Cool. Okay, well, I am working on the 4th book in this series, and it's called Wildcat Academy. It in the past and also recently, there have been a number of schools for troubled teens in the Berkshires, and I'm using one of them. And in this book, Catherine, my main character, is reunited with her mother, whom she has been estranged from for a very long time. And she not only sees her mother again, but she meets her mother's new husband. And it turns out she has a half sister, who is the daughter of her mother's new husband. And the son, her half sister's son, attends one of these schools, and something bad happens there.
We're not going to say what. So I have just happen to have it here with me, The Fine Art of Deception. This is the 9th in the Sidney Riley Provincetown mystery series. And I'm going to be interested in hearing what happens because I have violated one of the prime rules of mystery writing, which is you should have a corpse in the first 3 chapters. I don't have a corpse until well into this book, so it'll be interesting to see how people respond to it.
Well, I just want to say that I admire people that can drop a body on the first page. I finally did it in Wolf Bog. And this book, it's going to happen several chapters in. And in my other books, let's see, I don't think they're really, well, I shouldn't give things away. But Rattlesnake Hill, you have to wait quite a while for a real body to drop. And yeah, Shuntoll,
Right.
another story. Susan, how about you?
Oh, now I'm racking my brains thinking, gee, I better go back and check. Yeah, there was one of them that there were nefarious things going on, but they weren't necessarily murder.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have twists that you think something's going on, but it's really something completely different.
Yeah.
So
Well, good. And we did it in an hour.
yeah,
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much, Leslie, Jeannette, and Susan, for a wonderful conversation tonight and sharing the inspirations for your mysteries. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I've reshared the links in the chat where you can purchase copies of our authors' books. We hope you've enjoyed the program this evening. Thank you again to our authors. And good
Thank
night,
all of
everyone.
you for
Thank
being
you
here.
so much.
And thanks, Helen, for hosting us.
For
It was
having.
my pleasure. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Enjoy the evening. Good night.
you too. Good night.